I want to talk about there's some a little bit of malarkey going on here on the channel, and I learned my news from Twitter, as everyone does.
It's the best place.
Well, at least you find out what's going on. I'm smacking my lips like a girl.
Sit there having to read all these pesky articles with all this stupid information. You get a nice 140-character summary. It's like the greatest Cliff Notes ever.
And there's apparently a bit of strife. I don't know if it's on Nick Di Paolo's side or if it's just Jason Ellis not liking Nick or not liking things Nick has said. I don't think Nick's ever said anything about Jason that I've known. But it was, I guess Jason was saying he didn't want him on the channel, or he wasn't happy that he was on the channel.
Yeah, well, Jason said that before. This wouldn't be the first time.
Oh, he had?
Yeah, right. Jason had said that before, that he was not happy that Nick Di Paolo was on the channel, because I think the original thought was that Rude Jude was going to come over, as was Jason Ellis. And I like Jason. As I've said many times, I was happy when he joined the channel, even though we lost a replay, but it was okay.
Yeah.
And I was all for Jude joining the channel too, because for those of you that don't know, Jude does afternoons on Shade 45, and he says that he wants to get into talk radio, and he's hilarious. I've had him, I had him on my show a bunch of times, and I love the guy. I thought he'd be an awesome fit for the channel.
Yep.
To my knowledge, getting Jude over here was way more complicated than it should have been, and I don't know whose side it was on.
Might have been his management side, or it might have been on the Shade 45 side.
Shade 45 isn't just a channel here, right? Because the guy in charge of Shade 45 is Eminem's guy. It's like it's not just Eminem's name on it, and then it's just any serious channel where people can be moved around. Everything does have to go through Eminem's people.
And we found out a while ago that Nick was coming on. Again, it didn't work with Drew. We waited for a while.
Yeah, that's what the holdup was, actually.
I was very happy when I heard it was Nick Di Paolo.
Me too.
I hadn't even considered Nick Di Paolo. I literally thought it was going to be Craig Ferguson because Craig has been here doing shows. So Nick's a really, really funny stand-up, and he's caustic. Nick is a caustic communicator. Like, that's how his jokes are. And when Nick talks about saying the word faggot or things like that, like, if you didn't know Nick Di Paolo and you think, why does he hate gay people? He really doesn't. And I know this because first of all, I've known Nick for almost 20 years, and I've also been around Nick, around gay comedians. A lot more than you realize. Nick interacts with gay people. He's not some dude.
I get it.
No, you don't understand. No. I don't mean just sucking their dicks, which he does do.
Oh.
No.
Okay,
Nick's an open-minded guy. But no, like I've seen him for many, many years interact with gay people, and he doesn't give a shit.
Well,
when Nick resists, what he hates is like with the word faggot or it's the word nigger. It's not that you want to go around calling people this or you want to yell at it. He'll say, like, you can't even call a guy a faggot. He's probably talking about in daily life. And I think guys like Nick resist being told how to communicate. And they resist being told that everything they think is homophobic or sexist or whatever it is. So then you push back kind of harder because you feel like you can't do the humor you want to do. And even if he is fucking more caustic than you like, and he says shit that you don't like, I like the fact that it's like that on the channel. I like the fact that you have, Jason being Jason. Fine, be who you are, and maybe Jason's a bit more sensitive to it because he's kind of newer in talking about this stuff.
He's bi.
Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, look, I've been talking about trans women for a long fucking time, and it's not something I deserve an applause. I don't give a fuck. It is what it is.
Well, here's what I was listening to that, and so Jason has issues. Nick is very right leaning.
Yes,
you know what I mean, and so
right leaning. He's fucking propped up on his right elbow,
and he's also angry, and so he can come across any number of ways to people who don't agree with him. But when I heard that Jason Ellis was saying that he was going to represent the LGBT people on this channel, I said to myself, now look here, it's one thing if you
feel like you should represent
if you run the channel. No, I immediately thought my co-host has sucked way more dicks than anyone else on the channel.
Your co-host said that in the mirror.
And he's been doing it, way longer than it was cool. So, I don't think that that's right.
Well, the reality is, it's like, I understand being like, you don't want to be a fucking doormat. And I listen to what Jason said, and I know what he was saying. Like, he just wants to feel like, hey, man, you don't want to feel like you're being marginalized or treated like I get it. But you can't ask a guy like Nick to not be who he is. It really is. You need to let that guy because a lot of people feel that way where they're resisting, like they say, I don't want it in my face all the time. Because they feel like a lot of times when you're showing a lot of gay couples on TV, they're like, oh God, show business is just shoehorning this shit. And not only are they shoehorning it, but they're telling Nick, like all those jokes you make, you're a piece of shit for doing it.
Right, you're a bad
and again, I
person.
haven't talked to Nick about this. I'm just surmising as a guy who knows him that that's where a lot of his opinion comes from. He's not some hateful guy who fucking hates people. I've seen him at the cellar for years, just interacting with people. He doesn't give a fuck.
So Nick was doing a story. He was talking about a story on his show. He's on at 6, by the way.
This is going to completely contradict what I said. Maybe it will. I don't know what story he was talking about.
Jason comes on after us, and Nick comes on at 6 p.m. Eastern here on the channel.
Yeah.
And Nick was apparently, and I believe Travis told me because I heard Ellis's rant.
Do we have any of it?
Yeah, we'll have a couple clips.
Okay.
But I heard Ellis's rant, and I hadn't heard the Nick stuff that he was talking about. But Travis told me what he was talking about was Nick was talking about a story of a baseball player who was using some kind of derogatory slur, whether it was faggot or cocksucker, or it was
I think
something.
it was faggot.
It was right,
Yeah,
but we don't know for sure. You said right.
I've watched the video and I would say I'm 90% sure.
Sure.
That's what it is.
Right. So he's saying that, and he gets in trouble with the team, and
He was suspended for 2 games.
and Nick was talking about that story, correct?
Correct.
And he was saying that it was ridiculous that he was suspended and blah blah blah.
Right.
And it ends up in a conversation with a lot of Nick's listeners about, you know, we used to be able to say this, we used to be able to say that. And what I'm guessing is that the conversation was really about PC culture run amok.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even hear that, and that was what my guess was. It's a reaction to being told, "Don't joke about this. Don't say that." It's a reaction to being told what you can and can't say.
Now, I think that the argument about he should be able to say faggot is like so on its last legs.
Yeah, I think
that
so
it's
too.
ridiculous. I mean, that is it. It literally sounds like it's coming from another period in time.
That's one Nick is gonna have to. Nick's probably gonna have to throw the white flag in on that one. It's one. It's like
Pink
it's
flag.
just. Well, yeah, so to speak. But you're gonna have to kind of go like, unless there's a reason to use it, or if you're joking with your friend, I still don't think it's a problem. If you're joking with 2 buddies, are joking. If you're going, come on, don't be a fag. It's a much different thing than calling a gay guy a faggot, where gay guys have been beaten to death while that was being yelled at them.
So, but and I don't even think like that, and that's fine. It goes back to what we were talking about before with this guy on Twitter. Like, this is what Nick has done, has always done. This is what I would expect a conversation to be like on Nick Di Paolo's show. I don't know if Jason Ellis was sold on this idea that he would have any kind of control over the channel.
Yeah.
You know, we're joking. And again, I hate breaking the fourth wall. But none of us are in charge of the channel.
No.
The people who are in charge of the channel are the bosses and Travis.
And Travis does have a lot of juice.
Yeah.
It's usually in his beard. But it's
Gender
one of those.
fluid.
It's one. What'd you say?
Gender fluid.
Gender fluid. It's one of those things where they called it Faction Talk simply out of a lack of creativity.
Yeah, they had
not
already-
because Jason was going to have more juice on it, but literally they just couldn't think of another name.
They said we created this brand Faction, and we were like, there is no brand Faction. But they were like, we've created this brand Faction, and so we're just going to call it Faction Talk because we already created that brand and we don't want to create another one. That was literally the conversation. And it was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, then this isn't a fight that you. It was made clear this isn't a fight that you can win. We've created this brand and we don't want to create another one. Okay.
But do you think Jason, like, he doesn't strike me, Jason never strike me as a guy who's really sensitive about language or like telling you what you can joke about. Is him reacting this strongly to something like this just what happens when something is new to you, or when you're starting to just talk about it or be open about it, and now you're seeing it through a totally different lens because now, I'm standing on this side of the fence now, and I'm uncomfortable with hearing these words. Whereas if you had been talking this way for a long, long time, you would understand like this. It doesn't mean it. You know what I mean? It's like these words aren't any more serious than
This is
anything
a new
else.
thing. Yeah, you know, I think that's a good point because it did come across to me a little bit like when like a kid in school first learns what racism is or first learns what homophobia is, and they start calling everything out that they see like, that's racist, no, that's bad, that's racist, like, and they haven't really figured out context yet. I don't think that the shows on this channel should sound the same.
I agree.
You know, I think that that's a problem that talk channels generally have, that shows either agree with each other or sound the same or whatever. I think I love the fact that this channel now has multiple live shows. Not because it's like, yeah, this is my channel, but because I get to worry about 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then I don't think about anything else on the channel.
I would like more replays. I'd be very happy if everyone got fired. It was just us.
You'd be okay with that.
Yeah, but I'm greedy.
Yeah, I don't need at this point the responsibility of
That's true.
of worrying about a channel. I would like to worry about 3 hours of content a day and move on with my life.
That's why we have an operations manager. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
You always, this is the second day in a row that that cocksucking grin on your face trying to throw somebody under the bus.
Every time he has a grin on his face, that's kind of his.
He loves trying to worm a naked joke into a conversation.
That's funny.
We're not even talking about that. He loves trying to figure out how he can kick E-Rock in the ribs.
Why am I'm not kicking Eric. I'm just saying.
Luck.
I'm saying. Wasn't me.
And by the way, you know
That's what he does too. He throws it into the room and he goes, I don't know why they went there.
I'm just reminding you that there's no reason for you to think about other things on the channel because we have someone to.
I was wondering why Travis would make that statement. That makes perfect sense.
Well,
If there's an operations manager.
Travis thought that the natural follow-up to that would be a conversation about the incompetence of said person, but I'm not going to talk about that.
And I wouldn't have anything to add to that.
Do you know how Colbert just got in trouble for the cock holster line? Like, that's the type of
Hashtag
stuff.
fire Colbert?
That's the type of shit that drives you crazy.
Yes.
Like, where, oh my God, that's anti-gay. And then you're like, where does it end? This mania, this upset. That's where it feels like it's being put in your face and shoved in your face. Not because, they're showing gay couples now or they're showing trans people. I don't think Nick cares about that. I don't think most people care about that. It's when it gets to a point where the PC culture wants to do things like every time there's an allusion to something, they try to lump it into that story and make you seem like you're homophobic if you don't agree. Like to call Colbert homophobic over that stupid line, that's the type of shit where it just goes off the rails. And then the main issue, which is an important issue, gets fucking sidetracked and people start to hate it. And that to me is where a lot of what happens.
And I don't agree with everything Nick Di Paolo says, but like he's one of my favorite.
You can't. I don't either. I haven't agreed with 100% of Nick for 20 years. But you agree with some and some you don't.
But he's one of my favorite people to have on our show. I love when Nick Di Paolo's on our show, and I couldn't be happier that he's a show on this channel. It makes me like when I tell people who's on this channel, his name being there makes me be like, yeah, that's fucking cool.
Nick, and even Nick's jokes that are just nice jokes. He's harsh.
Yeah.
He's a 50-year-old white dude from Boston who probably got punched in the mouth on Christmas morning. Nick is a rough communicator, but he's they were playing one of his jokes recently. I forget what he was talking about, but the difference between the wife and the husband and who gets more. And he's like, yeah, my wife's walking around with a $10,000 diamond on her finger, and I'm walking around with a urinal ring. It's just this harsh, brutal way of painting things, and it's always funny. He's just a funny fucking guy who communicates that way. So you're not always going to like him or agree with him, but that's who he is. And do you know what I mean? Like, I get Jason's a little sensitive to it, but I don't think you should be that upset that a guy like that is on the channel. If you don't agree with him, talk about him. But him being here is good. I think it's great to have the variety of, and I love that Nick's here.
Yeah, and since when are we supposed to have stuff on the channel that's not disagreeable?
Sure.
So this is the one place where people are supposed to be able to disagree with shows. Do we? Do you want to hear a little bit of Jason's rant on Nick?
Yeah, because when I heard it, I expected it to be really awful, and then I heard it, and I was like, I see he's just being more sensitive to this. My guess is just because it's a newer thing for him to be discussing and identifying with, and you kind of find in the way you're going to handle it.
I love Jason. He was.
Ew. Ew, Sam. Ew, you
Not like
what?
that. Not like that. Not like that. Not like that.
As a friend or more than a friend?
Just as a friend. Not like.
Oh, you just like him?
I just like him, but not like.
Okay.
But I thought he was way oversensitive on this one.
I did too, but I understand. Like when I'm listening to it, I'm like, why does he feel this way? Because he never seemed like he never seemed like a sensitive dude, language-wise. Like he never seemed to give a fuck before. So it's like, why is this all of a sudden something? And I'm just guessing because it's become real personal, and you don't always handle that. You know what I mean? Like you might be. Why am I not as sensitive to it? I don't give a shit what Nick says about trans people. Like, I might not agree with it, but it doesn't offend me or bother me.
But it's also like the idea of saying he shouldn't be on the channel is like,
I disagree with that totally.
like, what are you talking about?
I enjoy watching Nick on stage. He's one of my favorite comedians. He literally is one of the fucking... You know, sometimes if you get a guy who just who puts things forth that you don't agree with or you don't like, it's still important to hear that guy. And you can't watch Nick Di Paolo as a comedian and not think he's brilliant. You can't.
Yeah.
You know who he's good friends with? Janine Garofalo. Because Janine and Nick were on that HBO special together many, many, many years ago. The first time I saw Nick, I think it was before I did stand-up. And me and my buddy Kenny Hines are watching this special, and Janine was very funny on it, and Nick was this fucking... He was a beast. He was a young, good-looking, angry fucking beast. And I never forgot the first time I saw Nick Di Paolo. But I've interacted with him and Janine Garofalo together, and they really like each other. They were friendly. And you cannot be more polar opposites
Absolutely.
than Janine Garofalo and Nick Di Paolo. And when you watch the way female comedians or gay comedians interact with Nick, they all respect him. Some of them might not like some of his views or things he says, but just in that world and on that level, man, you can't have anything but respect for him. And you know what, Nick, even if he's not right about certain things or he's not PC, he's brutally honest, and he's spitting out a point of view that is held by a lot of people, and there's no lying behind it. You're hearing a guy give his real opinion about things, and that's a guy you can have a conversation with, because even if he walks away and goes, no, I don't agree, you'd be like, all right, at least he heard me out and I heard him out, and he don't agree.
Yeah, the constructive thing to do is to, like, if Nick's on the channel and you really disagree with him, have him on your show and be like, dude, like, why would you say this?
Yeah.
Like, don't you know what this...
Because he is funny. He's a really funny fucking guy.
But he'll have the argument with you.
Oh, yes, he will.
And he'll listen. I mean, he'll listen and he won't go on your side, but he'll listen to what you're saying.
70% of Nick's things, and having had a million discussions with him, come from blowback in show business or for language policing. And sometimes when you deal with all that shit and you fire back, sometimes you do fire a little too angrily because you're reacting to shit that you're being told not to joke about, and you realize, like, all right, I'm kind of hitting the people who are dealing with this, and my real anger is people telling me not to joke about it. Do you understand?
Yes.
So
let's hear what...
Yeah, I'm babbling. I apologize.
Let's hear what Jason Ellis said.
Go on now!
All right, this first clip is a little long, so if you want...
How long is it?
It's 1 minute 50 seconds.
That's not funny.
Travis.
Just trying to do my job.
Travis, no!
Oof, 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 oof.
Oh, good.
Oof.
Troy, you haven't come up with your own bark.
Troy, I'm so proud of Troy.
All right, Troy, come up with a bark.
No,
Travis,
no.
dub!
I feel like if I jump on now, I'm like,
No.
fine.
We need
You
you to
can
have
jump
a bark.
on. We need you
have
on.
a bark. Okay, I'll do it again.
well, let me give you some time to think
Yeah,
about
give him a little time. We'll have it, by the next time we do it, he should have one.
Okay, all right.
Give him a second.
That's fair. All right,
Give him a second over there. Google barks.
That'll take a while.
B-A-R-X.
Just
I
looking
don't know
up
if he's
tree
serious
photos.
or not, if he's joking or he's actually offended. But I know he looks at me different for the rest of my life. He'll never forget me now. He'll be like, "Oh, that's the gay guy," and that makes me want to come back into my shell. But then I listen to this radio show in the afternoon on this fucking channel, man, of a guy that is just bashing gays, lesbians, and transgender people for like 2 fucking hours. I tried to call his show, but I couldn't get through. I mean, actually got through, but then they like hung up on me. On this channel, dude, talking about how there's barely any of them anyway, and it's always in my face, and we're now we're not allowed to say faggot, and I'm like, man. And then he just got all these people to call in and agree with him, and I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm not me, but I am a bisexual guy or a gay guy or a bisexual girl or a transgender, and I'm listening to this, and then he has all these phone calls of people agreeing with him. Yeah, man, there probably is. What is it? Is it 10% or 5%? It's not even 10%, is it? That are transgender, gay, and bi or whatever. It's fuck all of us. But it still adds up to being millions of people. I don't understand why. What if there was only 5% black people? And then there was a radio show where it was just 2 hours on why are they going to bring black people into my face? Because it's not a choice, man. I didn't make this choice. It's just what I am. It really, the only
See, can you
choice I
pause
made
for a
was
second? I don't
accepting
think it's
myself for
Jason.
what I am.
I don't think it's Nick.
That's the choice I made.
It was just.
Oh, sorry. I don't think it's Nick saying that. Like, even when Nick, I really do think it's a reaction to being told that getting mad and saying faggot in a moment of anger is this life-threatening thing, or when it wasn't when he was younger. And again, I know times change and you got to kind of adjust to that and kind of reset a little bit. But I don't think Nick is reacting to, oh my God, that guy's gay, fuck him. I don't think it's that, to be honest. And again, he's been around a lot of gays in show business, and you can't... I don't think he feels that way.
Jason sounds so hurt, though. I do wish Jason could just.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think he's hurt by it, and it's like, just blow dudes in peace. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people should be able to do whatever they want, and you don't even need to label it. Like, you don't even need to just announce, like, well, because, I've sucked some dicks, that means I'm bi, and if you're talking about this, then you're talking about me, and it's like, maybe you're just sucking a dick today. It is what it is. You know what I mean?
I like the casual attitude.
Well, that doesn't mean I'm going to.
Yeah, it does. but the idea is, though. But again, when it's new to you, when discussing it is new to you, that's where it comes in. Like, you know what I mean? You get sensitive to things when they're newer to you, and it's just he's never been able to discuss this stuff ever. He's never been able to talk about this stuff. He's had the guy was abused by his father. I give Jason a certain amount. To say that Ellis is a fucking pussy. It's like, nah, it's not about him being a pussy. The guy, he's a fucking animal. His whole thing has been about fucking destroying himself physically. I mean, when he's not sparring, Rogan told him he spars too hard. He gets kicked in the face all the time. He had Shane Carwin knock him unconscious. This is a guy with certain feelings about himself that he's working through.
Should probably just chill the fuck out.
Yeah, so he's not handling it all maybe 100% the way he should handle it. But also, the way, like him talking about Nick like that, that's the same thing, in a way, that is having him stand there and tell Shane Carwin, punch me in the face. It's both sides of that same thing. Mm-hmm. How do I work through who I am and the way I feel about myself? So maybe you're a little sensitive sometimes, maybe you're a little too self-hating sometimes. I'm just saying that you're not going to do it perfectly, but Jason, you got to relax when it comes to Nick, I think, because I think you're reading the guy wrong, and you should just have the discussion with him on the air. It'd be very entertaining. And Jason said he did try to call in, so.
It'd be really entertaining. Also, I mean, if he tried to call in and couldn't get through, that probably leads to the point that it's good that he's on the channel, because
he said they hung up on him. But I'm sorry, who the fuck would hang up on him if he said, I'm Jason, I'm on the channel? Why wouldn't you put him through?
But it's also like, if you disagree with Nick, which a lot of people do, or you don't want to hear Nick, which I'm sure there are plenty of people that are like, this is fucking bullshit, I wouldn't listen to this show, then you should be able to just say, this old man is out of touch. You can't make jokes like this anymore. He's totally out of touch. Turn the channel and just move on to the next thing, not be like, I don't think he should be on the air at all.
Shane, yes. And Shane, why do you think this, Shane, in Indiana?
Well, there's a little bit of a backstory about why Jason's all hurt. But the backstory is he literally had UFC Cowboy thrown on.
Right. What happened with that?
Oh, you guys know about that?
No, but I don't know what happened. He mentioned Cowboy, but I don't know what happened.
He basically came out, Jason came out and said that he was, he sometimes sucks a dick or something. And Cowboy was really taken back by it and kind of standoffish after that. And then he literally turned on the radio and heard Nick Di Paolo. It's kind of like a bad day for gays in Jason's life, because he had that back to back. But the opinion is just like Jason being gay, mad at a straight guy talking about gays like that. I mean, the straight guys are kind of sick and tired of talking about sucking on dicks.
Well, you also got to realize too, and this is what Jason has to realize. Like, I don't know Cowboy well. I've interviewed him. I could see Cowboy Cerrone being standoffish with that. But again, I understand that would be annoying. But you have to realize when you put that out there and you say that, people are not always going to like it or react positively. And some guys have a different experience in their lives, man. They've been raised a certain way.
Yeah.
And just because some guys are like, whoa, what? Like, yeah, you're dealing with a guy that fucking throws kicks for a living. Cowboy has a way of looking at things. Maybe it's a little old. All right, whatever. But that's who he is. You can't get mad if he's not 100% on board. If Cowboy looks at you and goes, you faggot, and walks off the radio, that's different. But if he's a little standoffish and he doesn't know how to handle it, hey, man, a lot of people don't. Again, in our lifetimes, it seems long, but relative to the American experience or the human experience, we've been talking about this stuff openly for a very short period of time.
Right, and it's actively in the process of changing.
Of getting worked out, right.
But Jim, you know...
Thank you, Shane.
There are Jim Norton fans that have to believe that the trans stuff is jokes.
For a while...
That they will not live in the reality that you're actually talking from personal experience.
I don't know. At this point, I don't think so. I mean, the fans, you know, as much as we've teased them, the fans are not dopes. They always understood subtext, or usually sometimes they think that we're more horrible people than we really are.
Yeah.
But the fans understood a lot of the subtext. They understood a lot of the shit that was happening on the radio show for years that never went said. So I did joke about it at first. That was the easy way to talk about it. And again, my job's to be funny. My job is not to come out and tell you people how to feel. So when it comes to that stuff, you know, you joke about it, and it's like, does he know, doesn't he know? But people always kind of knew. And at one point I denied, I'm like, no, I didn't know. I knew.
Yeah.
But I think people kind of understood that, and I always felt that people did, because even the way they would joke with me, they didn't give a fuck. And I knew that they didn't give a fuck. I wouldn't have cared if they did, but I sensed that they didn't.
And you're joking about it, I think actually like eased people into this thing that if it wasn't you or you weren't joking about it, they might have been uncomfortable with it. But the fact that like they're Little Jimmy, I love Little Jimmy, is doing this, and he like, you know, and you eased it in by joking about it, made them be like, oh, I guess people do that. That's fine.
And when people joke with me about it, and I've had, you know how many times I've had that? We're like, hey, was she a tranny or whatever? Like, I know they're not trying to be like, fuck trans people. They're just trying to joke about this thing that you've discussed.
Right.
And in a way, joking about something in a way kind of normalizes it.
We were literally joking about it with Ricky in the dressing room the other night.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, guys, that's my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Are you guys making fun of the way I live my life?
Yeah, you got to own who you are and understand that, like, in this world where people make fun of each other harshly, you're gonna have harsh jokes about it back and forth. So fans for years have been teasing me about it on Twitter, or a lady with a dick, or is she gonna? Hey, she's a pretty girl, Jim. Did she fuck you in the mouth or ass? What am I gonna do? Get mad at that? No, it's funny.
It's funny.
I don't mind that, and it's a fair question.
Right. Yeah, it is.
You know?
And you know what? Half of it is jokes.
I'll have an answer for you.
Half of it is jokes, but the other half is like we're curious, because I joke about it all the time, and the real reasons is because like I'm curious. Like I joke about it because I want to know the real answer. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I want to find out.
Sure.
I'm interested.
But you can't, as someone who's kind of talked about that stuff for a long time and whatever, you can't let the fact that everyone's not going to react in a comfortable way affect you or upset you. You can't. You can't survive in this world if you're going to allow that. But again, for him, it's newer, so you got to give Jason a little bit of a break too. You know, I don't agree with what he said about Nick at all. But you know, all right, he's new to it. Hopefully he'll come through this thing on the other side and not really give a shit.
I want to get Jason to New York and have Nick and Jason on at the same time. I want that conversation to happen on our show.
I would love that conversation,
great.
and they'd both be willing to have it. Believe me, I've never seen Nick shy away from a discussion, and I don't think Jason is particularly afraid of confrontation. That's one thing you can't say about Jason. He's not a pussy. Like, anyone who's saying Jason's a pussy, you're just using, like, you're just pulling words out of the fucking air and using them. Like, he's not a pussy.
No,
he's not a fucking. I mean, the guy does nothing but try to destroy himself, and that does say something. He spent a fucking lifetime skateboarding, going through concussions, doing all these things that self-injure, and then he comes out and he says his fucking father would rape it. All right, there's something there that might make you react a certain way.
right.
So you got to give that guy a break too, man. Because he's a little sensitive to it, because he can't bite the face of the guy that fucked him up.
You want to take a break?
I do. Mary Jean has arrived, and we have this.